Hey everybody, today I'm going to be talking about a field that's Long Live Paintball in Monroe Township, New Jersey. Long Live Paintball is a relatively new field. It's located on Englishtown Road in Monroe Township, New Jersey. It's just south of the intersection of Texas Road and Englishtown Road, so it's easily accessible from Route 18, Route 9. It's a really nice location. Originally, Long Live Paintball was located at the old location of Fireball Mountain in Old Bridge, but last year the field moved about a quarter of a mile down the road to its present location in Monroe Township. It's essentially in the same place though. Let me start with safety, which is definitely hit or miss at Long Live Paintball. There's no safety briefing, which is pretty much the standard these days, even though I would really like to see more safety briefings. There's only a couple fields that do it regularly. Everyone should do it, so the fact that Long Live Paintball doesn't make it stand out as particularly unsafe, but it's still something that should be done. There's also no chrono check, and I think this is a bigger problem. They really need to have a ref at the chrono station when players are chronoing their guns. Really, they should have a ref there all day long, and they don't. But they should have someone there, at least at the very beginning of the day, checking on the players that bring their own markers and making sure they're chronoed below the legal limit. The reffing can also go either way. There are some really good refs, and there are some really not good refs. The head refs, in particular, tend to be quite good, but they tend to stay in the dead zone, and in the main dead zone, in the main staging area, they're really excellent. They're on top of people with barrel covers. If people are running around without barrel covers, they're helping with air fills, they're directing traffic, making sure all the different groups are going where they need to be, and they make sure there's a quick turnaround between games, which is really excellent. But the other refs are not as good in many cases, and part of this is because the refs are so young and relatively, I think, inexperienced. But these other refs that maybe go out to the field and run the games rather than kind of manage the main staging area, they're not paying as close attention to things like barrel covers and masks as they should be. So a lot of that kind of stuff is on the players to remind the newer players, hey, keep your mask on even if you're out, put your barrel cover on before you leave the netted area, that kind of stuff. The other thing I've seen is that the refs that'll take the games out sometimes are very good about, okay, the game's over, switch sides, run it back the other way, and sometimes there's a long delay between the two games in a round, and that can get kind of annoying. Another thing I want to point out is that the netting is generally quite good. Probably 90% of the netting is in excellent condition and very secure, but there are a couple of places where the netting isn't tied down quite as securely as it could be, so on windy days the netting might pop up. None of these areas are directly facing the main staging area or one of the peripheral dead zones, so it's not really a big deal, but it's something that the field should address anyway. Now the fields themselves, there are 6 fields at Long Live Paintball. They have a spools field, which is kind of a hybrid speedball-ish, more or less open field with pallets and spools forming most of the bunkers. They have a barrel speedball field, so that's a speedball field where all of the bunkers are constructed out of 55-gallon drums. They have a container field, which is pretty cool and unique. It has 2 large shipping containers on either side, maybe the opposing 25s, and those form kind of backbone for each side, and then in between those, in the central part of the field, is a very dense network of bunkers made up of drums. It's so dense, it's actually almost walled in with bunkers on the interior, and then there are some bunkers on the periphery of that. It's a very cool, unique field. Tends to stagnate a little bit, but also allows you to have some really nice, tight, up-close paintball going on. Then they have a town field, which is really cool. It's their biggest field, I think, although the woods field is quite large as well. They have this town field, which is just a bunch of buildings, irregularly shaped, irregularly placed, and that makes for fun, long games. They have a woods field, as I just mentioned, that has been steadily growing and being built up. Now, because they've expanded it a bit, that might be their big field. This is a cool field because it has some parts of it that are kind of more open, more hybrid than woods, where they have bunkers and structures and things, and they have other parts of it that are just woods. There are no artificial bunkers at all. It's just brush, trees, that kind of thing. There's some tall grass. There's a brook that runs through the field. If you're willing to get wet, it makes nice cover, or a nice lane where you can crawl without anybody seeing you. And then finally, they have a very nice speedball setup. I'm not sure whether the field is any type of regulation size or layout, but it's a very nice field with turf and air bunkers in what appears to be some sort of standard, you know, Dorito side, snake side kind of layout. I'm not really sure of the specifics, but it's a very nice field and tends to be very well regarded as a venue for speedball. Now, all of these fields are somewhat small. You're not going to find fields here that are as big as some of the fields at, say, Top Gun or On Target Paintball. But I do want to point out that this field has been consistently improving their fields since they moved to the new location. Some of the fields started out very sparse, particularly the Spools field and the Town field, and that was about a year ago they moved. Since then, the fields have been built up pretty consistently and tend to be maintained pretty well. So thumbs up for that. Now in the dead zone, in the main staging area, it's a pretty nice setup. You've got a lot of picnic tables, so there's plenty of room to sit. There's a separate kind of area for the speedball crowd, so even if you have a nice big crowd, you generally have enough room for everyone to have a table or somewhere to sit or whatever. There's also plenty of fill whips for air tanks, so you never really have that long a line. The only time you see a line build up is when a ref is helping a rental group go one at a time to one of the 3 Ks, but then all the rest of the stations are open, so it's really not a problem. The price is $25 for walk-on with your own gear. They have various rental packages on their website. Some include paint, some don't, so price will increase accordingly. The field is field paint only, and paint is $50 to $60 a case. So that's about what you would expect for a field paint only field. It's certainly within the range of being perfectly fair pricing. Some other things I want to mention that I like and some other things I want to mention that I don't like. First, the managers tend to be hanging out either in the registration trailer or in the main staging area throughout the day. So they're on top of things, they're seeing what's going on, so they get a feel for how the field is operating, and I really like that. One thing I don't particularly care for is that this more has to do with the players than the field, but when speedball players jump on to the walk-on games, they tend to want to stay together and will petition the refs to allow to be all the speedballers on one team and everyone else on the other team, and as I've said before, that's not cool. However, props to the refs. This happened just the other day when I was there, and I said, look, these kids are all going to leave the field unhappy. We know these guys have no trigger control, and the ref said, you're right, and made them split up, and then the games were fair. So that was good. Also, something I really like is that if there is a big enough crowd, and they'll only do this if there's a big enough crowd. If there's only maybe 20 or 30 walk-ons, they won't do this, but if you get up to 40 or 50 or more people, and I've seen it very crowded, they'll split the walk-ons into 2 groups. They'll have all the renters in one group and all the people with their own equipment in another group, and that way everyone plays with people of the appropriate skill level, which is excellent. Not enough fields do that, but this place does, so major props for that. Finally, Long Live Paintball offers very frequent Groupon deals. So you go on Groupon every so often, it seems like 2, 3, maybe 4 times a year, they will offer a Groupon deal where it's $25 for entry and a bag of paint for the day of play. And that is a great deal. So the last couple times I've taken advantage of that, and instead of having to pay entry and buy paint, my paint was included with entry. Now tax is not included in that deal, so you have to pay like $4 in tax, but still, that's a really excellent deal for a day of play at a field paint only field. So overall, Long Live Paintball isn't bad, it isn't great, but it's definitely good and improving. I think most of the problems that I've experienced there have to do with growing pains. The field became very popular very quickly, taking over for Fireball Mountain Old Bridge, which was not at all a popular location. This field became a very crowded field relatively fast, and it maybe outgrew itself to some degree in terms of the number of people that were there. But I think most of the problems are due to young, inexperienced, or not enough refs, which hopefully that will get better with time. There are a few things they need to address that aren't just going to go away with time, such as having a safety briefing every day and having someone checking the chronograph throughout the day. However, overall, this field has done a really excellent job taking a bad location, moving, and really improving it. Give it a shot. Those are my thoughts on Long Live Paintball. Thanks for watching. See you soon.